Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Victoria Mensch. She is a founder of Silicon Valley Executive Academy, public speaker, transformation expert, and she helps high achieving leaders find balance between success and happiness. Welcome to the show, Victoria.
Thank you very much, Ajay. Happy to be here.
You are welcome to the show, Victoria. You are welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to discuss right now. We'll be talking about the thing that I said, the path to work life harmony for high achievers. But first, we want to understand your career path, your journey for the audience to understand you better as to know who they are actually listening to.
That's always useful, yes. So, as you mentioned, thank you very much for this kind introduction. I'm Victoria Mensch, and I'm a founder of Silicon Valley Executive Academy. I actually have quite a few different roles. I'm an executive in a couple of other companies, Silicon Valley Innovation Center and Link. And most of my career actually was spent in Silicon Valley, in high technology industry, in different roles and different capacities, a lot of them leadership roles as well. So as you may know, and I know it's not unique to Silicon Valley, the culture is quite high pressure. So there's a lot of pressure to succeed, pressure to innovate, especially in high technology, and it leads to burnout. And I was not an exception to that. So it is my personal story to actually go through different stages of being interested and energized by what I do and my role and my mission. And then slowly over time, that kind of dwindles down and leads to burnout. And in the beginning of my career, I actually did not know that it was a burnout. It's only recently that burnout became this, widespread phenomena, and people are aware of that. So in my mission, I see it as a mission and now to actually create awareness about burnout. And it's not just in professional environment, but in personal environment as well, and help people to find path to harmony. To harmony, yes, so that we can live happy lives, happy and productive lives. So that's my background. I started being a psychologist a long time ago. I defended my dissertation. I have a PhD in psychology, and then I pivoted into the high-tech industry. So I spent a lot of time in product marketing and high-tech industry. I got my MBA at UC Berkeley. So stepping into this, expert role on harmony and moving from burnout to harmony, I bring this unique view of like academic and psychology background and the business background and my leadership experience. So, and I hope that a lot of people will benefit from that and will create harmony in their lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Victoria. Thank you for that. And you see, you are an MBA from UC Berkeley, PhD in psychology. So
Yeah.
many high achievers are great from great institutes, achieved so much. But why is it they know so much about other companies, their own companies, but they know very little about themselves? Why is it so? Why does it happen, especially with high achievers?
Well, I'm pretty sure they know a lot about themselves, but high achieving people, that's what they do, right? So they want to succeed. I think one of the misconceptions that we have, and this is rooted in our culture, in our society, and our upbringing, is that we think that success actually brings happiness, right? So we think that the next achievement will bring happiness. So I'll wait until I get the best degree I can. I wait until I get money to get the great house, and I'll send my kids to the best colleges. So you're always chasing those achievements and actually thinking that that next one will bring happiness. It's very interesting because, as I said, it really kind of is rooted into our culture, and it's an entire conversation on why is that. But the most interesting part right now is that people who are actually studying happiness, those who spend the academic research now shows that it's not that way. So you can actually become happy first and successful later. More than that, happy people are more successful. And I think one of the misconceptions, we actually don't know what brings us happiness. And it looks like it's not achievements.
Absolutely, Victoria. You said such a nice thing about, happiness can come first, success can come later, but we always see it the other way around. Is it a problem with our mindset? Is it our some intrinsic problem, or is it that we have just learned it the wrong way, and then later on we want to do that course correction? Perhaps many a times it's too late. How do you
Mhm.
see it? Then how do you do this course correction for others? What are your views on this?
Yeah, so I think part of it is ignorance, really. We don't know, right? So a lot of our misconception is coming from that. And we're all coming from a different society, right? So if you look at, several decades, just recently, a couple of decades, even, one decade ago, our priority was really a survival, right? So we actually, we were in a survival mode. It was much more difficult to just ensure um, basic necessities like the food on your table, the roof over your head. So survival mode was quite typical. And I think by inertia, we're still in that mode in a lot of sense. And we're brought up by the society, by our parents, by our educational system in that mode. So, what we're learning now about the state of happiness and what it means is that, most of all, if anything you want to take out of this session today, is that happiness is a practice. So, it's not a state that just all of a sudden, some people are lucky and maybe their baseline happiness is higher than most. But for most of us, it's actually very good news that happiness is a practice. And if you practice the right things, you can assure that state of harmony and happiness for yourself. And that will help you not only prevent burnout, but actually achieve success, what you're so looking for. So,
Right, right, Victoria. So I grew up reading that happiness is a state of mind. But
mhm.
nowadays I see a lot of people talk about happiness when they have the new phone, new achievement, new sort of thing. How
Right.
would you like people to look at happiness? If it's a state of mind, what do you tell them to, you know, uh, do so that they can achieve that state of mind?
Hmm. Hmm.
How does that work? Because when these high executives come to you, obviously they know a lot of things. What is it
Hmm.
that you tweak in them that they can understand happiness better, success better?
Right. Right. So what we usually, when people come to me, they usually come with a burnout. So that's what we're look at first. So what is that burnout, right? And if you look at that, the burnout is really, people start feeling exhausted. It's a state of when you feel overwhelmed and exhausted all the time and real lack of energy to do anything. So that's what we're looking at. And the burnout, if you look at that, is really caused by stress, right? It is a state of chronic stress. So what we do first is really try to figure out how to bring our nervous system into a less stressful state, right? And I called it the first aid, burnout first aid. And those are physiological, actually has physiological elements to that. So what is stress? It's a stress reaction that really is triggered by that survival mechanism that we mentioned before. So our entire body, our entire state gets activated to survive, and it's called fight or flight response, right? So everything gets shut down, but that. So when we see a lion somewhere in the bushes with better, really activate that survival response at that particular moment. We need to figure out whether we want to fly or we want to fight, right? So what happens in our normal society, we don't normally have lions, hiding in the bushes, right? So we assign that survival meaning to a lot of different things. Whether I'm successful in my job, whether they're like wildfires somewhere in a different, continent in the world. So our nervous system still keeps looking for those survival things. But we never complete that cycle, you know. So our whole system gets into this uh, highly elevated mode of survival, but that cycle never completes. So what we do normally as the first kind of level, we are learning how to complete that stress cycle response. And it has to be some kind of an action. So it could be breath, right? So there's 3 things that you can do that can easily help you to switch from fight or flight mode into what we call rest and digest mode. That's much more calmer, right? That allows you to actually contemplation, allows you to look at what are the things that you can do beyond survival. So you can breathe. There are tons of different breathing techniques, and we go through them all. Some of them are very simple. You can move because that's a stress cycle that needs to be completed with action, and you don't really need to run a marathon for that. It's really could be something like stretching, or it could be you clench your muscle and you relax, right? So you do that to switch your nervous system from sympathetic to parasympathetic, your response from fight or flight to rest and digest. Or you can meditate. And when we say meditate, a lot of people kind of go into it's like, oh, I need to have hours to sit there and, with my eyes closed. It could be very simple, 5 minutes, just very calm, sitting in the chair and trying to calm your thoughts. So that's the first aid in the burnout. And after that, after your system kind of calms down, you can look beyond this and see what else we can do. And what happens usually is that people feel, from a psychological point of view, people in burnout, they feel that they don't have control over their own life, that their life is run by others, right? By service to others, by the deadlines that are set by others, by all the different tasks and activities that are set by others. So what I found in my work with high achievers is to step back and look at practices that help you feel in control. And one of the most effective practices in that is what I call self-care. And there are so many different ways how people do that. But what it means really, and what it is for, is really replenish your own energy. And how you do that is when you do activities that you like to do. There's no other purpose for those activities, but only bring you joy. So it does not mean to serve others. It does not have to. It could. It does not have to. It's not because somebody expects you. It's not because it's useful. The only reason you want to do that is so that it brings you joy, just because you want to do it. So I can share you my experience, how I came through this.
Yes, please.
Is
Yes.
when I first did this exercise, I was in the state of deep burnout, really lack of motivation, exhausted, just really not in a good emotional state. And then I did this exercise, and the exercise was to put together a list of 20 things you like to do. And you would think, like, what would be easier than that? It took me 3 weeks to complete that list. So I started, and on number 3, I said, this is it. I don't remember what I like anymore. I don't know who I am. I know what other people want from me. I know what other people like me to do, but I don't remember anymore what it is that I like to do. So even that simple exercise can be very insightful. So because it makes you remember, it's like, oh, who was I before I got this high stress, high prestige work? Who was I before I was a student? Who was I before I was a doctor of psychology? Who was I before I became a mother? So you actually go back almost to when you were 7 years old. Like, what did you like to do when you were 7 years old? And nobody expected anything from you. So you put a list of 20 activities like that. Even that exercise on its own, gives you insights and makes you reflect on who you are and what you want to do and what brings you joy. But then the next step, the practice part that we mentioned, the practice part to actually schedule those activities into your day, every day. You want to do 3 of those every day. They don't have to be, it's like, oh, I want to spend 6 hours at the beach somewhere, in a tropical island. It could be, oh, I want to take 5 minutes in the morning to make myself coffee and drink it on a terrace under the sun. So that's all, right? So it could be very small, it could be very big, and a lot of those activities can be fit in. So those of you who are now saying, well, now you want us to do something else, like I'm already busy and exhausted, and you want me to do something else on top of that. So this is an excuse. You have to understand that this is your kind of toxic patterns are telling you this. So there is no excuses to take 5 minutes a day to go outside and just look at the sun and breathe, right? And what it does is that it replenishes your spirit, it replenishes your energy. But the most interesting part here, remember how we started, like people feel that they don't have control. The control is entirely within you. So it's entirely under your control. There's no one else that controls. So there's a sense of empowerment in that, asking yourself, what do I want? And doing it.
Strange are the ways of the world. Those people who create so much of artificiality in our lives, artificial intelligence,
Right?
uh, animation, wrong sort of animation, toxic, bringing so much of toxicity in some of these lives. Some of these children's death are also being put on Silicon Valley executives. Do they ever come to you feeling remorse about things that they have done, forgetting who I was before I got into this particular thing? Or do they always think about, okay, let me come out of this burnout and create something more which can destroy a few more lives? Do the good
Right.
part of technology, I understand, but I just want to focus on this a bit.
Right, right. Well, there's all sorts of feelings that people go through, and I'm sure some of them, and we work through that as well. Some of them come with a sense of guilt and remorse, and some of them come with a sense of regrets. Maybe you have to realize that it's also your state, right? So once you kind of forget who you are and what you do, and you don't do it deliberately, you just kind of submit to the flow of life, right? To the flow, what people tell you, the whole
Submit
system.
yourself to the flow of some of these mighty people who are controlling our universe. Then how do you why do you want control later on in your lives when you are submitting yourself to others? It can once be a mistake, twice be a mistake, thrice is not a mistake, it's a
Yeah.
choice.
Right. So, but a lot of it is really about conscious choices, right? So, I think a lot of us we go through life by following somebody else's advice. So there's this shift. I mean, it's not an easy shift for people to take responsibility for themselves. A lot of the work that I do, what I realize, really comes to that sense of radical self-responsibility. That everything is in your control, right? So every time you say that, oh, it's somebody else's fault, it's a society fault, the key is really in conscious and aware actions of that, and that's not an easy task, right? So how do you actually take these steps consciously? Like every time you need to respond to stimulus from outside, how do you take time to actually take a breath again and decide what's my next conscious move? Do I just react to what's going on, or I actually respond the way I think I want? And it starts with figuring out what is it that you want. So more than that, when we started talking about burnout, I said, well, it's this exhaustion, right? So like go and reduce stress. Yes, but it is really just the first aid, right? So if you don't address those deeper underlying issues, don't step into that kind of conscious state and practice of harmony and happiness, then it's just a band-aid, right? So in a few months later, you'll find yourself in the same situation. But if you do step into this practice, then you actually create your own life. You figure out what is the life that you want, and you create it. So it's very empowering.
Absolutely, very empowering. One more thing I want to understand from you, Victoria, is that we always talk about success, we always talk about happiness. Why
Mm-hmm.
don't we talk about peace? I think a lot of in this part of the world, peace is what. And most of the places, movies, anywhere you go, people will talk, I want peace in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But in
Mm-hmm.
our day-to-day life, we don't talk about peace. Why is it?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a conscious choice, or we have misunderstood peace for happiness? How do you look at it? Which is more powerful, peace or happiness?
Well, I call it harmony, and I think that we mean the same thing by that, right? So happiness, as you mentioned, and you're absolutely right. Sometimes it's very fleeting. I get a new iPhone, and for the next 5 minutes or a day or two, I feel happy and elated about that, and then it kind of tempers off, and that's also a very interesting very interesting feature of our emotional states, right? So that's why we always want more and more and more. So harmony, or peace, is, I think that's what you mean by that. It's a much more stable, much more sustainable, I think, goal, right? So that you're not, so basically, the way I'd like to envision is that you have your core, that's inside you. And, the work is really to find that core and be able to move to that core as you wish. So, and I think there's so many things that we're talking about that are outside of our control, right? You live in in a specific, political system, or in a specific country, or you work in a specific company. And so some of those things are kind of outside of our control. That's where you found yourself. But this core, that's totally under your control. So I think that's where the empowerment comes in, finding that core and being able to return to that core. And that's where peace and harmony is. So, and that's how we actually, I think, we just step outside a little bit and look at the broader picture. That's, I think, how we can change the world, right? You start with yourself, you come to that core, and then that harmony and that kind of balance that you have inside yourself, that will spread in people around you, in your work environment, and so on and so forth. And I think it's very important for high achievers as well, because they are actually influencers. So that's how we change the world, and judge our world and success by peace, not necessarily by the next big house that you can find.
Absolutely. There is much to learn from you, Victoria, much to learn from your Silicon Valley Executive Academy, you as a speaker. So, a lot of people would like to learn about you, from you, be your client. What's the best way to them to connect with you?
Yeah, so I actually, my most, kind of useful, I think, and most powerful mode of operation with me is through mentorship. So if you go to svexecutive.academy, you can find information about one-on-one mentorship and about our group mentorship programs as well, for people who want to kind of move from burnout to harmony. And we also do retreats, when you take yourself out of your normal kind of everyday life for 10 days or so, and you actually immerse yourself in this practice of harmony, and you take account for what you want, what you'd like, and how you want to proceed, and what harmony is for you. And you walk away with a blueprint for your personalized individual practice. And all of that can be found in on the website svexecutive.academy.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much, Ajay. Thank you, everyone who listened.